a global flashpoint: Gaza's enduring conflict. The Gaza Strip stands as a stark reminder of the complexities and enduring nature of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This small coastal enclave, densely populated and politically volatile, has been the epicenter of numerous outbreaks of violence. Its fate is intertwined with broader regional dynamics, captivating the attention of the international community and impacting global diplomacy. The ongoing struggle in Gaza is not merely a local dispute, it is a microcosm of the larger Israeli-Palestinian conflict, reflecting the deep-seated historical grievances, political impasses, and humanitarian crises that define this protracted struggle. The conflict's roots run deep, entangled in competing claims to land, resources, and national identity. For Israelis, Gaza represents a security concern, a launching pad for rocket attacks and militant activity. For Palestinians, it embodies their struggle for statehood, their aspirations for freedom and self-determination confined within its borders. The Gaza Strip, therefore, becomes a crucible where these competing narratives collide, fueling a cycle of violence that has tragically claimed countless lives and perpetuated a legacy of suffering and mistrust. The international community has long grappled with the intractable challenges posed by the Gaza conflict. Mediation efforts, spearheaded by various actors, have sought to broker ceasefires, alleviate humanitarian suffering, and pave the way for a lasting political solution. However, these endeavors have often been met with setbacks, as deep-rooted mistrust and the absence of a comprehensive peace agreement continue to hinder progress. The recent escalation of violence in Gaza, therefore, serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the region and the urgent need for renewed diplomatic engagement. The plight of civilians caught in the crossfire remains a pressing concern. Gaza's population, subjected to repeated rounds of conflict and a crippling blockade, faces dire humanitarian conditions. Access to basic necessities, such as clean water, electricity, and healthcare, is severely limited. The psychological toll of living under constant threat is immeasurable. The international community bears a moral imperative to alleviate the suffering of Gazan civilians and to advocate for their protection under international law. Over the past 10 months, the Gaza Strip has witnessed a dramatic escalation of violence, plunging the region into a state of heightened tension and despair. The fragile ceasefire that had held for a period of time unraveled, replaced by a relentless cycle of rocket attacks and airstrikes. This latest surge in violence can be attributed to a confluence of factors, including the volatile political climate, the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, and the lack of progress towards a negotiated settlement. The escalation began with a series of incidents that quickly spiraled out of control. Protests along the Gaza border fence, met with lethal force by Israeli forces, resulted in numerous Palestinian casualties. Militant groups in Gaza responded by launching rockets into Israeli territory, prompting retaliatory airstrikes from the Israeli military. This tit-for-tat exchange of fire intensified rapidly, with each side accusing the other of perpetrating acts of aggression. The humanitarian cost of this latest escalation has been devastating. Hundreds of Palestinian civilians, including women and children, have been killed in Israeli airstrikes. Thousands more have been injured, many suffering from severe burns, shrapnel wounds, and psychological trauma. The already precarious humanitarian situation in Gaza has been pushed to the brink, with hospitals overwhelmed, essential supplies dwindling, and the population reeling from the constant fear of bombardment. The international community has expressed grave concern over the escalating violence and called for an immediate ceasefire. The United Nations has warned of a full-blown humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza if the fighting continues. Diplomatic efforts are underway to de-escalate the situation and revive the stalled peace process. However, the path to a lasting solution remains elusive, as deep-rooted mistrust and entrenched political positions continue to hinder progress.
In a bid to quell the escalating violence in the Middle East, I embarked on a high-stakes diplomatic mission to the region. My itinerary included stops in Israel, Egypt, Jordan, and the Palestinian territories, where I engaged in a flurry of meetings with key stakeholders. My mission aimed to secure an immediate ceasefire, address the underlying causes of the conflict, and explore avenues for a lasting peace agreement.
Blinken's first stop was Israel, where he met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other top officials. He reiterated the United States' unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself against rocket attacks from Hamas. However, he also emphasized the importance of exercising restraint and avoiding civilian casualties. Blinken stressed the need for a ceasefire to prevent further bloodshed and create space for diplomatic efforts. From Israel, Blinken traveled to Egypt, a key mediator in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. He met with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry to discuss Egypt's efforts to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Egypt has long played a crucial role in facilitating dialogue between the two sides and maintaining stability in the region. Blinken's visit underscored the importance of Egypt's continued engagement in seeking a peaceful resolution to the crisis. Blinken's diplomatic mission also took him to Jordan, another important regional player. He met with King Abdullah II and Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi to discuss the situation in Jerusalem, which had been a flashpoint for the recent violence. Jordan has a special role in safeguarding Muslim holy sites in Jerusalem, and King Abdullah has been a vocal advocate for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Section 4. The Truce Proposal. Seeking common ground. As diplomatic efforts intensified, a truce proposal emerged as a glimmer of hope amidst the escalating violence in Gaza. The proposal, reportedly mediated by Egypt and Qatar, aimed to secure an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, paving the way for dialogue and a potential resolution to the conflict. The truce proposal addressed key issues at the heart of the conflict, including the cessation of hostilities, the release of hostages, and the easing of the blockade on Gaza. The first and most pressing element of the truce proposal was an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. This entailed a complete cessation of rocket fire from Gaza into Israel and an end to Israeli airstrikes and artillery shelling in the Gaza Strip. The ceasefire aimed to halt the bloodshed and create a more conducive environment for dialogue and negotiation. The issue of hostages held by Hamas was another crucial aspect of the truce proposal. Hamas had captured several Israeli civilians and the bodies of 2 Israeli soldiers during previous conflicts. The truce proposal called for the release of these hostages as a goodwill gesture and a step towards building trust between the two sides. The release of hostages was seen as a complex and sensitive issue, with both sides facing domestic pressure regarding their fate. The truce proposal also addressed the issue of the blockade on Gaza, which has been in place since Hamas took control of the territory in 2007. The blockade has severely restricted the movement of goods and people in and out of Gaza, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis in the enclave. The truce proposal called for the easing of the blockade, allowing for the flow of essential goods, humanitarian aid, and construction materials into Gaza. Section 5. Israel's stance, a cautious acceptance. In response to the truce proposal, Israel adopted a cautious stance, weighing the potential benefits of a ceasefire against the risks of emboldening Hamas. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faced pressure from within his own government and from segments of the Israeli public who demanded a decisive military victory over Hamas. However, Netanyahu also recognized the growing international pressure for a ceasefire and the potential for further escalation if the fighting continued. Netanyahu engaged in consultations with his security cabinet, weighing the various factors at play. He also spoke with U.S. President Joe Biden, who had expressed strong support for a ceasefire. The Biden administration, while reaffirming Israel's right to defend itself, had also urged Netanyahu to de-escalate the situation and work towards a peaceful resolution.
After careful consideration, Israel will accept the truce proposal. We must prevent further bloodshed and create an opportunity for dialogue. However, let me be clear, Israel will respond forcefully to any violations of the ceasefire by Hamas. This truce does not constitute a permanent solution to the conflict, and we will continue to pursue our security interests.
Netanyahu's decision to accept the truce proposal was met with mixed reactions within Israel. Some praised his leadership in securing a cessation of hostilities, while others criticized him for agreeing to a ceasefire without achieving a decisive military victory over Hamas. The truce represented a calculated risk for Netanyahu, as it remained to be seen whether it would hold and whether it would pave the way for a more lasting peace.